Hello world and true believers. This is from our last Aspie Girl, and I want to make today's video. Okay, bear with me because this is going to be kind of long. I actually made a video last night, but I deleted it because I realized that sometimes when I have an idea and I get a little bit too excited, um, I clutter a little bit, and I don't express myself as well as I should, and so I thought that maybe that if I had like a night to kind of to think about what it is I wanted to express and allow my thoughts to percolate a little bit and then try to collect my thoughts, then maybe I would do a little bit better job in expressing myself in a video. Okay, so the movie that I saw last night was called The Danish Girl. I won't get into all of it except to say that it's set in the 1920s, and it's about this guy who starts to realize that he's female inside and kind of his journey. And I'll just tell you two things that happen. But if you haven't seen the movie, then these are kind of spoilers, so I don't know if you want to hear the next 5 seconds of this or 10 seconds or whatever. But the first thing that they do to try to normalize him is they give him that he goes to a psychiatrist and they give him radiation treatments, and the psychiatrist kills all the bad cells but saves all the good cells, which we now know is like that's fucking bullshit. And we say that's kind of archaic that they used to subject people to that back then. The next thing that they try to do gets institutionalized, and they want to lobotomize him or her, depending on how you want to look at that, for feeling female inside because it's a perversion, and he ends up escaping and everything. And, as I'm watching this, it got me to thinking that movies like this, and any movie in a similar vein, they're trying to show how we've evolved. That, this is how we used to treat people that were different, but we're not like that anymore. Things have changed a lot. And my question to you guys is that really true? Because look how society, the neurosocial collective mindset treats us. Like, most of the books that are out there to help us, it's not to try to say, hey, this is how to gain acceptance. It's kind of like to say, this is what you need to do to normalize yourself to fit into society. Because so when something new and deviant comes along that makes the rest of the world feel uncomfortable, what they want to do is to get us, find a way. It's kind of like we're like a square peg and they're a round hole, and they're just going to keep pounding at us until we fit into that fucking round hole. But it's not going to work because, like I said, one of the things that we have is being mind blind, which I think actually gives us benefits in other ways. But the whole social maze that is out there that we're expected to traverse is it's everything is labeled with colors, the social spectrum of colors that we can't see. And then when we get it wrong, we get in trouble, and then they wonder why we have anxiety and various other things. And how do they want to deal with it? They try to give us all kinds of medications. Like, I remember in 2011, before I was even diagnosed, and I was having a lot of problems at work and everything like that, I was seeing this psychopharmacologist, and she was giving me these antipsychotics, and they were I was getting akathisia from that. And I don't know if you guys don't know what that is. It's all these involuntary muscle spasms, kind of almost like Parkinson's, where you can't, like, you feel like you gonna jump out of your skin. You can't sleep, and you feel so uncomfortable you can't sit still, and it can actually develop in what's called tardive dyskinesia, which is permanent, and it's a neurological disorder. And this is the type of medication that they're giving us. And when I didn't want to take those, and I said, I was like, this is what it's doing to me, I don't want to take these medications anymore, she suggested I get ECT treatments, which is electric shock therapy. And that's like brain damage. I mean, if you do research on it, and if you talk to anybody that's had it, they have crazy memory lapses. They don't remember things. It's killing brain cells. And I think in 100 years, we're going to look back at these things, these types of medications, these types of treatment we give people that have, quote unquote, deviant mindsets or divergent mindsets. And we're going to say, that was really archaic. I can't believe that we did that to these people. And if you think about it, for right now, when it comes to this, when it comes to being on the spectrum, we are the pioneers for saying that our mindset is not defective. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, we process information differently. But is that necessarily bad? Is being unconventional a bad thing? And Because let's break that down a little bit, like I have in some of my other videos. Like first, like I said, being mind blind, like yeah, maybe we can't walk that social spectrum of colors, but that allows us to do other things. Like we definitely are able, because we're mind blind, we'll think outside the box. We're not influenced socially the way the rest of the people are, and I'm going to get into that a little bit in a few minutes, a little bit more. But we also have lateral thinking. And, when I broke down the theory of mind quiz to try to show that, I'm going to give some real life examples of how that can benefit you just in just everyday little things. All right. One of them is, I remember back when I was in college, and this is going to be another spoiler with the movie. There was this movie that came out called The Crying Game. I didn't know anything about it. My friend wanted me to go see it with her, and I had no background on it at all. And I went and like so we're starting to watch the movie, and it comes to the part where Jay Davidson is on the stage, and I've never seen this actor before, but the first thing that I noticed, I was like, the first, because like we see the pieces and then we see the whole. The first thing I noticed was the Adam's apple. Then I noticed the large hands. But it was a female, and most of the features were very feminine. But then there were these elements that were very masculine. And I realized the only time I'd ever seen something like that before was when somebody was either transgender or transvestite. And I leaned over to my friend. I said, "That's a man." And she said, "No, it's not. Pay attention. Let's just watch the movie, Brenda, And I was like, okay. And I'm watching. I'm trying to figure out what was going on. But I felt like that was relevant and it was significant. And when the scene comes where the unveil is and they show that it is a man, everybody in the audience is amazed and awed. Like they're awestruck. Like, oh my God, except for me. Because I already knew that it was. And once again, like I said, we might not see what it is the neurosocial brain sees all the time, but we see other things and we pick other things up because we see the pieces. We don't see the whole first, the big picture first, and we see all the pieces. When we piece them together, we're going to see the discrepancies. We're going to see how things don't always necessarily line up. And that can give us an advantage in certain situations, such as this. Another time when I saw a movie, and again, this is going to be a spoiler, so if you haven't seen the movie Usual Suspects, fast forward a little bit or just stop watching. I came home from college and my dad's like, "You have to see this movie. It's really good." And he sat me down and he left the room. He's like, "When you figure out who it is, come and tell me." And I only needed to watch 5 minutes. And as soon as I was introduced to Verbal Kin, I ran upstairs and I was like, "Dad, it's Verbal Kin." And he's like, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Because a couple things. The name of the movie is Usual Suspects. So the person who's not usual is going to obviously be the one. There's a formula. And as soon as you know what the formula is, then you can look for the discrepancies for things like that. And then you know what I mean? Once you understand to look for the pieces first, when you put it together, you can see where the gaps are. You can see where the discrepancies are, where the pieces don't fit together. Right? And that's what I was talking about, seeing things from like a perspective. When I'm talking about empathy, seeing things from other people's perspective without any of those values or anything like that. We're able to do it logically without allowing our beliefs, our values, our own emotions to get in the way of seeing things from that perspective and having true understanding. It's difficult when we're younger because we don't have all the experiences, all the variables that are necessary to be able to do that. But as we get older, I think we begin to see it as a puzzle, and we're able to piece the puzzle pieces together much more easily. But everything still is always, because we do get overwhelmed by our environment sometimes. It's because we are trying to take in all that information, and sometimes it's very difficult to do it in real time. But what we do is we can go back. So when we have a memory of something, like each time, like I'll have a memory from when I'm a child, and each time I go back to that memory, I'll be able to use the new experiences to reassess that memory, and I'll get something new from that memory each time. But I didn't dismiss anything from that memory. Everything is still there, and I'm able to assess it and rotate it in my head. And it'll be the same thing with a book. Like I'll go back and I'll reread a book, and each time I read it, I'll get something different from it. Same thing with the movies. That's why I'll watch something on repeat, because each time with each new experience, even only a few days later, I will get something different from that movie each time. And and again, it's because I'm each time I'm looking at each piece individually, and I'm reconnecting them. And with the new information that I've gained over the last few days or the last couple of years or whatever, I'm able to reassess that utilizing that information. And I think that is something that is very unique to us. On the spectrum. I don't think it's something that the neurosocials do. I think they can do it, like, because I think it's something just like we can learn certain things that they do naturally. Like, I was talking, my sister being very people smart and me being book smart. My sister over the years has learned to be much more book smart, and I've learned to be more people smart. But we still are coming at it from different places. Like, a lot of times I'll be able to assess somebody and I'll have all this information, but I don't know how to use it for my benefit. I'll figure things out about a person. I don't know how to use it to manipulate them. And even if I wanted to, I don't think I could. That's not what I do. But I can use it, like, maybe for profiling or for problem solving. And that's why, like, I was really good at the whole systems analyst at that job that I told you guys about. So I think that is very significant, and the fact that we do have a different way of looking at things, but it can be beneficial. But because we don't know how to market our skills, we don't know how to, like a lot of times, I think a lot of us have, like, all these abilities, we have all these ideas, all these thoughts, but because we don't know how to convey it to the rest of the world. I think a lot of times, a lot of people that are on the spectrum, they die with all these wonderful things inside of them that they were never able to communicate to the rest of the world. Because, like I said, just because someone is lower functioning or because they have a harder time communicating, it doesn't mean that their inner landscape, their innerscapes, aren't rich and beautiful and profound and deep and full of all kinds of thoughts and insight. The problem with those of us on the spectrum is we're not always very good at communicating it to the rest of the world, especially when we're younger. I think a lot of times those of us that are higher functioning, as we get older, we learn how to do it and we get better at it. But then, we'll have difficulties in other ways. Like, I know for myself, if I don't socialize for a long time, like, it's almost like I forget how to talk. I forget how to, like, form words, because I think in pictures and in patterns, and all of a sudden, like, it's almost like my ability to talk has become rusty, But then I also think I have a threshold of socializing. If it gets too much, I get very exhausted, and it's like there's a cap to it. And I just have to realize what that balance is, where that middle ground is. And so, like my whole point is always with these videos is to tell the world and tell other people that are on the spectrum, we're not a defect. We look at the world differently, and we're the pioneers of this mindset to show the rest of the world that we can contribute, we can be a productive member of society. We just sometimes, because our mindset isn't dominant, we need some accommodation. That doesn't mean that we're weak. That doesn't mean that we're less than. In some ways, our thought process can be superior. I'm not saying that in all ways that we are. It's not about being better or worse. I think that our mindset is a counterpoint to the social mindset. I think we've always been here. Like, I think, like, one of the things that I've been thinking about is that not just about things like this, but, like, throughout time there have been people that have thought differently. And it used to be like, think about Socrates. Like, he thought differently. He was actually executed. And the interesting thing to me is, like, the powers that be, the government, whoever's in power or whatever, the media, like, the way things like that used to be dealt with a long time ago is they would kill them. But what happened when someone was martyred is that their voice became stronger. Whatever their message was became that much stronger. And I think that that type of history has taught the powers that be, whatever form that might take, whether it be like government or the media or whatever. Instead of silencing that person, what they do, like let's look at I think his name was Carl Patterson from the 1950s, when he went against lead-based paint. Like, one of the ways that was dealt with is they got scientists to debunk him, right? And it took him a really long time to convince the rest of the world, the rest of America, basically, that lead paint was bad. Even though there was evidence throughout history to show that it was bad, it took him a really long time to convince people of that. Because I think that's another thing that the neurosocial mind does, that I think that we are different, is the ego is related to, like, group identity and different things, and, like, admitting sometimes something's bad is difficult for not just for ego, but for other things, and we can get into that maybe in another video. So there was Carl Patterson, and that was one of the first times, instead of martyring somebody who's saying something that was against whatever propaganda that was out there for something that necessarily wasn't good for society, is they used another scientist to debunk him. And if you look right now, that goes on a lot right now, because one of the things that before I even diagnosed, I started looking into is cognitive dissonance. And I think that this happens. I'm not saying this doesn't happen to us, those of us on the spectrum. I think it does. It's just the way we go about it. I think in this way, I think that most people, because they have a big picture view, if they think something and they want to go research something because they see the big picture first, they kind of go, like, if they do a search for something, whatever it is that they think, and they begin to dismiss anything that doesn't go along with whatever they're saying. And there's so much, and the internet right now is saturated with so much misinformation that you can go on there, and whatever it is that you want to believe, you can find data on there that will validate and confirm whatever it is that you want to believe. I think that we go about things differently. It's not that we don't experience cognitive dissonance. I think that it just, our brains are because we don't like to dismiss information. When we do a search, we will go, and I know that I do this whenever I'm doing research on any kind of project. I read everything. I go in, I read every single link that comes up on every single, and I don't just read the first page. I go page after page. I read every single word on every single thing, and I don't dismiss any of it. It's always there in the back of my mind. I take notes and all of it, even things that don't make me feel comfortable. I still take it in, and because of that, I might start out thinking one thing, but because I'm looking at all the pieces, and then only at the end do I piece everything together. I might come to a different conclusion than one I started out with, and it might not be one that makes me comfortable, but I'll change my mind. And that's why it bothers me a lot of times where, like, and even in my assessment, the neurologist said I had rigidity of thinking or whatever, and that we do because we have problems changing perspective. I think it's because we don't just change our mind because someone tells us something is different. We need to see the evidence for ourselves. We need to go in there and research it. Someone needs to show us, to prove to us beyond a shadow of a doubt that whatever it is that is the opposing point is actually true. And I think that when we do come to a conclusion, the reason why we are we do sometimes so vehemently, like, argue in that point is because we've done research. Like I said, when I was in college, I think I talked about how I did, I had to take, like, this communication class. I was on this debate team. They didn't allow me to pick what I wanted to do for this, but they told us we had to argue for marijuana, and I didn't like it or anything like that, but I had to argue for the side for legalizing it. And I went out and did a bunch of research, and actually it was very interesting for me because I at the time didn't like it, and I thought I didn't think people should do it. But then I did all this research and I realized how beneficial it was. I started reading about hemp rope and how it helps people. Like, even back then they had studies to show that help people with, like, glaucoma and all kinds of things. And I was like, oh wow, this stuff can actually be really good for people. And it completely changed my perspective on it. And when I went up there, I argued for it, and I still lost the debate because I was only arguing the facts. And the other guy, all he kept talking about is how it's a gateway drug. And that's all he kept saying. And he won the debate. And I got really upset and frustrated. And I went to the professor and I was like, what the fuck? And she said, it's not about arguing the facts. It's about persuading your audience. And I was like, and that right there, that was one of the first lessons about the neurosocial mindset, even though I wasn't diagnosed, that it's not about the facts, it's about consensus. And if you can get consensus on your side, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to convince people, and how in using emotion. And that's a whole thing where again, it goes back to what I was talking about in one of my other videos about the whole empathy thing. Just because a neurosocial is able to intuitively understand someone else's emotions and use that to either manipulate them or give them the appropriate sympathy at the time they actually need. Because I think it's not that we don't want to give people sympathy. We just don't always know the right things to say. We might realize someone's in distress and we might actually want to override that to give them the right thing to say, but sometimes we don't know what to say. Like, I know that will happen to me. Like, my mom will be upset about something. And I love my mom and I don't want her to be upset. And I'll try to say the right things to her, but I don't, because I'm not always good that way. But what I will try to do with her, and she does like that I do, is I'll try to give her a story from my life that will show her that I understand, and she does appreciate that. And that's what I said, like, a lot of us Aspies will do a lot of times, is we'll try to relate it back to ourselves and let the other person know that we understand. So we might not say all the right things, like all those really sweet and wonderful things, but we'll try to find another way. If we want the other person, if we want to give sympathy, it's just not the same type of sympathy that the neurosocial brain gives. So, my whole point of this whole thing is that, we say that as a society that we've evolved and that people are more accepting of people that are different, but that's not true. And it's not just true with accepting people that are different, but it's also true when it comes to accepting new data, new research. Because like I was saying, like how when we do research, we will go in there and we only look for things, and we don't dismiss, I mean, we don't, that's what the neurosocial brain does, because it causes cognitive dissonance, and they wanted to default to what's more comfortable or what actually confirms their own theory. I think that we naturally don't dismiss any information, and we look at only the pieces initially, and then we only put together the big picture when we have all the pieces, that we'll see the discrepancies, and we'll actually change our mind according to that. Although it will seem rigid because, this goes back to like what Ian Ford talks about in the Field Guide to Understanding Earthlings, fluid truths. The reason why we seem like we have rigidity in the way we think is because we don't change our mind because an authority told us that this is the way it is, or because consensus tells us the way it is. We need to go and research the data ourselves. So sometimes it makes it seem like we're very rigid in the way we think. But in some ways that can be beneficial. Like that's why I'm saying that I think in a lot of ways our mindset is a counterpoint to the social mindset. I think we balance each other out. Okay, and the other thing that I want to say is another interesting, because like again, like I was saying, like not only does a society, like the neurosocial mindset as a whole, have problems accepting people that are different, they also have, like, and I just said like they have problems accepting new data. Is like there's like another example is that I don't remember his name, begins with an S, like the doctor who realized that hand washing was the doctor should hand wash before they you do think that basically the like a pioneer for germs. He was working in a maternity ward, and he knows the only two difference between the two maternity wards is that midwives were delivering one set of babies, and all those babies survived. And the other ones, it was mostly medical students, and they were doing autopsies and dealing with cadavers beforehand. Then they were going and delivering these babies, and these babies and the mums were often dying. And he wrote papers on this, but he didn't have enough science at the time to back up his theories, that he thought that there's some kind of unseen pathogen that was actually killing off the mums and the babies. And he actually died in a psych ward, not ever being able to convince people of this very simple concept, because a lot of the doctors were offended by the fact that he was telling them to wash their hands. And I think ego comes into play a lot of this. And I think that our ego, the people on the spectrum, our ego, we have ego, but I think it and the way it's associated with our identity is different. And this also goes into something that Ian Ford talks about in A Field Guide to Understanding Earthling, is about something through association. Like, I know that this has happened to me before, or like, and I never used to understand why people got upset by this until I read this book. Like, if I don't like something, I'll just tell people. I don't associate myself with the things I like or I don't like, because my identity is not connected to that. Like, if I don't like country music, and country music has become very popular, and people will talk about it, and if they like, I'm like, I hate country music, and people are like, Brenda, that's offensive. I'm like, why? And he explained that people through association will associate with the thing that they like, and if you say you don't like it, it's like basically saying you like them. Like, I don't like sports, and I'll sometimes if someone likes sports, I'll say I don't like it, and then people will feel like I'm saying I don't like them, and that used to always confuse me. And it goes that goes into the whole group identity thing and everything like that. People, through association and through group identity, they begin to identify with these things, and their ego is then attached to it. So if they and they don't want to change their mind, because in doing so it somehow affects their ego. I don't think it's the same for us. I think it's different, and that's something I'll get into another video. I don't want to digress too much from this, but again, I just want to say that I think our mindset, is beneficial. It just we just see things differently, and I think when the rest of the world sees that, then I think there will be movies made about us. Like, can you believe that we weren't accepting of these types of people at one time, and we tried to give them ECT and medications that cause akathisia and all kinds of weird stuff. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys. Again, if you have any feedback, let me know, and have a good day. Toodles. Bye.